St Asaph Street.
Nassau Street.
So are we going to have a separated cycle lane on St Asaph Street?
Yeah.
Yes. But that's
Which was the other
That's
point of
not before.
contention for
that's a
for
further
ECAN
project,
over
Madam
the
Mayor.
entrance and exit to
That's a
the
further project.
emergency.
So we don't have that diagram.
That's a further
That would be a
project, Councillor.
further accessible.
But we're not
So-
signing off on that one
No.
today.
Like, it just,
No, they would continue to travel on the south side of St Asaph Street, as many of them do at the moment.
Which is
but
the
Accessible City will then add a separation and a separated facility in there when we get to St Asaph Street and the improvements come forward for that.
what's the time frame for that?
That would be one of the phase 2 projects.
So that's an unfunded project that may not happen.
Which I believe you.
So, like, if you had a blank piece of paper, because the more I look at this, and a number of submitters have said they can't actually see the whole plan, and we've got comment through the document that this intersection will be consulted on later, but it all is really connected. So, if you had a blank piece of paper in this area, what would be the optimum solution?
Well, we did have a blank piece of paper that was called the Draft Central City Plan, and we didn't have a single interchange. We actually had, I think, a dispersed model which had 4 facilities, which meant that there wouldn't be an agglomeration of buses all in one place, all in the central city at the same time. I think, as I recall.
I mean, I look at Chilm Street and I go,
And that's
you
the
need
truth
2
of it.
lanes of traffic.
We've got
Why
what
don't
we've got, and we
just
have
take
to
out
make
one
it
lane of
work.
traffic?
Yeah.
So if you looked at Chilm Street, parallel park, take out 1 lane of traffic and make a really good cycleway that goes east-west and west-east.
Chewham Street is one way.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can,
I think,
Well, it
Madam,
does matter
on the
because
south side.
Chewham Street is one way under this model, and I have my own personal prejudices about one-way streets, and the experts tell me that that they're actually safer to travel down than
That's right,
than
but-
two-way streets. Less people die. But anyway,
so can
we
we
won't.
not, so
Have
we
you got
can't-
another question?
Well, yeah, because the Chilm Street, when you get to Madras and Barbados, why have you got the cycleway going next to the parked cars? Because it seems like it's a pretty poor level of service. And it kind of, surely we should be trying to separate it if we agree that it should be in this place, which I don't. But given that we don't seem to have many other
Sorry,
options.
where are you looking at?
So on the map A3, sheet 5, sorry, I mean, it's hard for you guys because you don't have the detailed drawings. So, but when you look at what you're being asked to approve, I mean, these are the plans. So the cycleway, you've just got car parking and no separated cycleway. Between Madras and Barbados.
Madam Chair, they are in the committee report. They're just in A4s.
they're just today for, and those are the modifications to the designs that were in consultation number 2, and that's what submitters have submitted on. Through you, Madam Chair, the answer to that is that the key cycle route at that point, once it gets to High Street, then travels down High Street, and when the further works are in place, and then joins the major cycle route on Ferry Road. So again, at that eastern end, that's why the facility doesn't cease, but then becomes an on-road cycle lane at that point, is that we would be encouraging cyclists to join those eastern and southeastern major cycleway routes in the vicinity of High Street. So carrying on the separation further along Chewham Street out to the east will only effectively encourage cyclists to think that we've delivered something out at Fitzgerald Avenue and eastwards from there where the facilities don't exist. So that's part of the sort of intuitive message around the delivery of the whole network is we want them to stay where they choose on those separated facilities.
Okay,
So it's High Street is the answer.
Yeah, Glenn.
Thank you. I've got some concerns about this, and this is based on my participation as a cyclist in the city and observations of cyclists, all sorts of behaviours I've observed. Can I just ask a question about just to clarify, Chewham's one way, are you saying the cycle lane is one way as well? Yeah.
So
Wondered-
Chilham Street will be one-way eastbound.
Yep.
And as will the cycleway for
Cycleway.
cyclists travelling east.
East.
Those cyclists who want to travel from east to west
Right.
will be on Senasif Street.
Okay,
And that's subject to a separate.
So they form a pair.
okay, just wonder if that's good use of money, and anyway,
It delivers again that intuitive
Right.
facility that they will both be on the left-hand
okay.
side.
My other question was going to follow from this, whether any work has been carried out in terms of the winter sun, but it may not be relevant if it's all east to west.
In terms of shading type
Yeah,
issues.
shading, line of sight.
I think that's a very good issue, Madam Chair. I mean, certainly normal cowling could be considered for the signal heads themselves. I think we are looking at an innovative set of cycle signals there, and clearly they would need to be high intensity. And so, yeah, you know, we've got those shading diagrams through the year, so we could certainly see whether there were any issues around winter sunstrike effectively on those signal aspects. Mike could probably comment on
just
that.
ask another question about cyclists, and Vicky picked up on this before, those who choose to run the gauntlet, but there's also failed, you know, I'm not wanting to sound too negative, but these things happen, failed brakes, people getting stuck in their cleats. I'm imagining two buses coming out at this, no, they're both going the same entrance, so that's not going to, they're not coming out the same.
No.
No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm concerned about some of the
I think one of the
impacts and we're throwing together the big guy and the little guy, and I'm really concerned about that.
One of the key things
They
to
come
remember is
together
this is a
everywhere.
30k zone, so the buses will be travelling slowly. This is not buses travelling at 50 k's an hour, and the staggering of the signals for the pedestrians and for the cyclists will enable the bus drivers to see those people. So it's as Mike mentioned, it's very similar to a normal intersection but safer.
Madam Chair, just coming back to an earlier question about shading and everything else, certainly that was an issue that was raised in the road safety audit, and also the issue of sunstrike. And as Tim has alluded, as a result of that, they're looking at low-level cycle symbols so that they're in the cyclist's face. There's also, as Tim mentioned earlier, the use of in-ground flashing studs, and that was applied in Hereford Street in the mid-block crossing. Hereford and Chilham, yeah. So I was actually a member of the team that did that on behalf of council, and we did a before and after study on that, and that showed that there was significant improvements of awareness of the crossing point and the controls from both the driver's perspective and the pedestrian's perspective. And we were getting upwards of 50% greater compliance as a result.
When there's sunstrike, there'll be frost as well, so the brakes won't work very well with
That's an issue with all roads in Christchurch, where we have shading from tall buildings on the north side. That issue can be addressed with the appropriate surfacing type, whether it be grooved asphalt or high friction seal or anything like those. So that there are the mitigation measures that can be put in place for those. And typically with the cycleways now, with the coloured surface that goes on, that usually has a chip in it which has got a high friction component to it. So.
Okay, I just want to finish the questions and then we'll break for morning tea and have the debate after morning tea. Jimmy?
Thank you, Mayor. Only one question regarding to the entrance of the bus exchange. And because from the map, I still don't know. My understanding that Chilham Street, they have one entrance, am I right? Only bus to enter into the bus exchange. Because from east to west.
And an exit further east.
But how about Litchfield Street? There's two different entrances or one entrance. Enter into and the exit.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, for buses towards Manchester Street.
Yes.
But of course, we're not proposing a separated cycleway on Lichfield Street.
Yes.
But as a result of these design enhancements to the interchange access, in looking at signalising the Chewham Street entry, the proposals that you have before you today for Lichfield Street also propose a signalled access to assist pedestrians on Lichfield Street across that entry as well. So that is buses in and out from Manchester Street.
Yes, okay. Supplementary questions. But how about passenger, how to access to the bus exchange facility, whether from Colombo Street or still from either the Lichfield Street and the Tune Street and the Colombo Street?
Yeah, the three proposals you have before you today, Madam Chair, are for the improvements to Colombo Street, Chewham Street and Lichfield Street. I guess one of the key improvements for pedestrian passenger access to the interchange is actually the new Barnes Dance pedestrian crossing at that Lichfield Street, Colombo Street intersection. That will provide a marvellous facility for pedestrians coming from the Justice Precinct, the new retail precinct. They will have an entry into the main plaza on level, at grade, straight into that northwestern corner of the interchange with its facilities. But we've also liaised with Carter Group, for instance, over the crossing proposal, and there will be another crossing point on the north side of the interchange over into the eastern half of the retail development. And so the whole thing is being designed to deliver logical, appropriate pedestrian crossing facilities and arrangements, all within a low-speed zone.
Pauline? Oh, Phil, then. Wait till your mouth's clear.
About the frost.
Oh, yours was about the frost
And
as
that was the
well.
advantage of the other side, because on the north side, that frost would never thaw for maybe a month, and it is a concern.
Right. Phil?
I just, in relation to the Abley report, as you've said, on our page 496 and in 4.45 and 4.46 is a summary of that. And clearly there's, in terms of the advantages of the south side, it becomes like part of that fine balance, which you refer to very clearly. And the conclusion is that overall, though, on balance, there's, the north side is an advantage over the alternatives as your recommended outcome. I just wonder if you could just elaborate on that and clarify that a little for us as councillors.
Yes, the Abley report was commissioned by Environment Canterbury on behalf of the Joint Technical Panel. The locus for that investigation was firstly for Environment Canterbury based on their October the 2nd submission to Council, where they recommended a number of alternative routes for this facility. And that was firstly the South Frame, secondly I think Lichfield Street, thirdly south side of Chewham Street, and then fourthly, if it was to be across the interchange entrance, barrier arrangements. So that was a large part of the Abley Commission, was to revisit the logic of alternative routes, and we asked them also to look at St Asaph Street, as Councillor Goff raised earlier, as another possibility of an alternative route. Their locus around Chewham Street itself was actually what in cycle safety terms would deliver the safest arrangement for the interchange access. And so it was perfectly logical and reasonable for Abley to conclude that if the interchange access was the primary focus of their investigation, then clearly moving the cycle facility to the south side of Chewham Street would remove that cycle safety problem, or at least part of it. Because the other issue with that is, would some cyclists still choose to stay on the left-hand side of the street and still ride on the north side of Chewham Street anyway, but then the absence of a cycle lane there, which would be removed with these proposals as it exists at the moment. And the other aspect of the Abley report that I suppose has not taken the wider view that we've had to with this is pedestrian safety. And so our equal, if not greater focus, given some of the operational and safety issues which Dame Margaret Baisley outlined to Council yesterday around the old interchange. The old interchange's problems were around pedestrian safety. There were no crashes between buses and pedal cyclists anywhere around the old interchange. There were crashes at Colombo Street, Lichfield Street, but they involved buses and pedestrians. And so our focus on this analysis has been to deliver a balanced network that delivers pedestrian safety around all of the crossings to this interchange and delivers cycle safety as part of an entire network of separated cycle facilities across this part of the central city. So it is perfectly correct that if it were to be moved to the southern side of Chewham Street, then that would remove a large part of the cycle safety problem from the interchange entrance, but it would not be, in our view, the safest overall solution for pedal cycle safety in the central city.
And the real problem with pedestrians in the old interchange was that the buses were coming from an unexpected direction.
Yeah, right.
And so having cyclists biking in an unexpected direction may have consequences further up the chain.
It is another unintended consequence, in our view, of a south side facility.
I think that's why I get why you're making the recommendation. Vicky?
Look at the logistics of this. You've got 80-second sequences. Is that what you said before?
I think that's the case.
So does
yeah.
it just go? Does it just go constantly? 80 seconds for the buses to go and 80 seconds for the others.
No, that's how each approach gets its. The signals will come back to rest. So they go around the clock, and everyone gets their go, and then within 80 seconds we've come back to.
Yes.
Start.
So do you get 80 seconds? Basically, 80 seconds.
No.
You don't.
No, I don't have the individual phasing, but within each 80-second signal cycle, which would be linked probably, I'm guessing, to the Colombo Chewham Street signals. Within each 80-second cycle, buses would get sufficient green wave into it to enable the one, perhaps two buses to enter, and that wave has come all the way from the bus super stop, so all the signals are coordinated from the west.
Okay.
And then when that wasn't green to buses, and i.e. red to pedestrians and pedal cyclists, the remainder of the time would be a green signal to pedestrians and
thank you.
pedal
So my maths on that was wrong. What I'm just wondering, in terms of the buses coming into this area, if, for example, 3 buses arrive there or 4 buses arrive there at the same time and they're not currently allowed to go in, what happens?
Well, as I said earlier, we don't expect that to be the circumstance.
But whether you expect it or not, buses will arrive together. Like, that's just the nature of...
So that lane will carry between 2 and 3
But you
three
can't
buses.
have a part of the bus, really?
Sitting within that dedicated
So
lane.
can I just be clear?
So they'll get caught back at the lights?
Yeah, they would. I mean, the bus drivers would just intrinsically know not to move ahead through the Colombo Street intersection because the way ahead wasn't clear. But as I say, I'll stress, we don't expect that to be a regular occurrence.
So you can have, if you have 3 buses, then they have to start waiting over the other side.
Potentially.
I can guarantee you 3 buses will arrive at once.
But they'll get stopped at the lights.
I'm willing to take this bet, but what you're saying is that they will just stop on the other side of the lights, regardless of whether the lights are green.
Yes, through Madam Chair, we don't expect that to be, and that, in a way, that is why buses are being given a green wave into the interchange.
no,
So
okay.
we're not expecting them to be sitting out on Chewham Street waiting to get in. That is all around then the design of the interchange itself and the 16 stands on it, that when they approach the interchange, there will always be vacant stands for them to move to on the interchange, which is the critical issue on this diagram, RFID, which I think stands for radio frequency in ground detection. So there's a loop, in other words, out on Chewham Street. As the bus comes up to the interchange, as the driver moves in, they are then allocated a stand within the
And
interchange.
is that technology actually going to operate from day one?
Yes.
You're absolutely certain on that, given ECAN's current situation with
Our project
connections?
managers here for the interchange.
Yeah, no, we'll be operating on day one.
Thank you.
Right, are there any other questions? One more question?
I mean, we spent a lot talking about the bus interchange and very little talking about the other wider aspects. Can you just tell me how much is this project costing? Well, I know the big figure, but...
Does it matter? Because we've already allocated the budget for it, and as we've been told, all of the phase 1 projects have been costed as across the cost share, and we pay X% of whatever.
With respect, it does matter because we've just spent some more money yesterday, so we have a finite pool, and as that money gets less and less, and where we've got, you know, extra costs for certain things or unders and overs, but it would be good to know how much that each of these projects are costing.
So I've got those figures, Madam Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Council approved the budgets for these projects on April the 22nd. They are within the $72 million cost sharing agreement.
Yeah.
TP9 Chewham Street, the project we've spent most of the time discussing, $4.5 million. We're on budget. We're on budget for all three. Lichfield Street, Manchester Street, Lichfield Street between Manchester and Oxford Terrace, 3.9 million.
Okay.
And the Colombo Street enhancements are 3.8 million. Brendan's here. Are we still tracking on those budgets?
Yes, we are.
And what's the ongoing operational cost?
They'd be taken account of subsequently. I don't have the ongoing
Can we get that at some
operation.
stage?
Yeah,
That would be good.
I'm sure we can. Yeah.
And just in a simple terms, how many car parks are we removing for on-street? What's the total loss of on-street car parks?
I think the figure is in the report. While Richard looks for the figure, it's a richer issue than the number of car parks we might be removing to enable these works to take place. So I think you heard from the owner of C1 yesterday morning.
Yes.
It's more an issue about how we manage the remaining on-street car parks, which are going to be fewer in number in the central city to deliver these streetscape enhancements, street trees and so on. What we must do, and is in the draft parking strategy for the central city, is to make better use of those that remain. So we completely agree with the owner of C1 yesterday that the remaining park should be focused on high turnover, assisting businesses to have people arrive there, do their business and move away again. So they're focused on short stay parking, loading and servicing and mobility parks for those that are unable to get to the car parking buildings. Then the parking buildings themselves will be about taking that load off the street. So everywhere we're looking to remove parks from the streets, we will be looking to replace them with
You're
off-street.
fine with Sam's suggestion of the P10 in the areas he wanted?
Sorry.
You're fine with Sam Krofsky's suggestion yesterday from C1
Yes.
of the P10?
We will follow that up.
Yeah.
We've done our best in order to accommodate that.
But
Yes.
if we suggest that that happens, you're fine with that? Yeah?
The total number of car parks is about 60. Yes, Madam Chair, through you, Madam Chair, yes, we
Thank you.
Sorry?
60.
60, so lots of 60 car parks.
All right, so let's adjourn for morning tea and we'll come back and we'll debate that. I assume that people want to have a motion on the table that they can debate around the south side, the north side issue around Chewham Street, because that seems to be the focus. It's not the entire focus of the debate, but the motion that's on the floor is that we accept the proposal as recommended by staff. Yeah. All right, so I'll leave you to think about that over the morning tea break, and we will recommence at 11 a.m.